And welcome back to the hottest marriage show in our neighborhood.
We're fanning out.
I am John D, aka Too Much, and this is my better half,
Tanika,
aka Do, and we are doing Too Much podcast, where we have those conversations to further progress and become that ultimate couple that loves each other and have more quality days and happiness, a sense of peace, a sense of, I'm glad you and I made this happen. Like, that's what I want. I want her to every day be like, I am glad I am not any of them. I'm glad I got this one right here, because he is constantly trying to find ways to make me happy. And that's what I want. But this episode, I wanted to talk about the facelift of Michigan recently. This past spring, summer, I worked as a canvasser, pushing initiatives for petitions, and they were put on the ballot and they all passed, and I was a part of history. But not only that, Michigan's a lot bluer than I imagined, and it's kind of cool. But I don't know if it's the best, but I know that it makes me feel safer.
Yeah.
And I know that only time will tell if it's the best. And I know typically you always think when you win it's the best, but sometimes you can lose and it can still be the best. I know that there are a lot of people that don't like the direction that Michigan is going in, but time will tell. But I wanted to get your opinion on it becoming so blue in the last 40 years. It's the bluest it's been.
Well, it's funny because that means this is the bluest it's been my entire life that I've been here. But I don't know. I was a little afraid. It's funny. I've never been afraid of Michigan. When I grew up, I just saw myself as a northern state. So you don't have to worry about things in the north. That was my thought process as a kid. When we came back, it was during the past administration, and the amount of different flags I was seeing, I think I talked about this before, it gave me a lot of anxiety, just because I feel unsafe. Because, certain people feel unpredictable to me. And the stuff I predict they may do is usually harm. And so I've been very, very afraid. It's interesting when people say it's blue. I don't know. The more I talk to Dallas, and he's my political teacher, my politics teacher, or whatever, and he makes me look at how this party system can be a lot of smoke and mirrors. Like, you think that you've gotten the good side, but they look just like the other side. It's just different players. However, I can't say that when I think of it being a bluer state, I think of things being cool and calm. When I think of red, I think of things being chaotic and uncomfortable. And so when they said that we were the bluest we've been and whatever, it really did make me feel better. One of the things that truly made me feel better was the abortion thing was bothering me, because I'd watched, I had been in on a race and racism series over the last year for work, and they had one recently, actually on the 9th. And they were talking about not being able to really predict people and how they're going to vote. Because, we have this idea of conservative and liberal, and we think of it as Democrat and Republican. But this one guy was like, usually when I talk to Black women, they will say, when you ask them about abortion, you have to remember that Black people, some of us are deep, deep in Christianity. And when I usually talk to Black women, the women will say, well, it's not for me, but, you know, I ain't going to say that other people can't do it. And then he said, but, you know, that's what they say to us. But when they go there and they're making, you know, they're voting, are they really voting like that? I don't know why I would feel like somebody would sit here and lie to me about, I mean, what am I going to do if they tell me, well, I don't believe in it? That's it. But I was really, really concerned while you were canvassing, when you would come home and you would talk about people saying, oh, no, I'm not going to sign that one.
Yeah.
You know, and thinking about that 90-year-old law that we had. And I'm like, could we ever really like flash back 100 years in regards to laws in Michigan? Like, I feel like the South is old and conservative and Republican and this and that, all those labels. But I can't predict people. And so I was really, really worried about the abortion proposal they had, especially seeing as when they said they had it up there were a lot of signs of the opponents of the proposal. It said, vote no on proposal, what was it, 2 or 3? Three. And then it said, too confusing, too extreme. But when you read it, it's not confusing at all. And it's really not extreme at all. But, you know, you throw those words out there and it scares people who don't read. You know what I'm saying? Who don't know anything. Like the people who were talking to you and they're like, well, I'm not signing that.
Yeah.
They didn't, you know, how many of them would let you explain to them what it exactly said?
Very few. You know, just thinking about, some people don't want to know the truth, because I remember you and I were talking about different people who grew up in Christianity. The last thing they want to do is find out that they've been living the wrong life. Mm. And, you know, when you get more information, I feel like you become better as a person. And I feel like loyalty is something that people from an older generation stress upon their kids. And even where I am, I believe in loyalty, but I believe we're loyal to the wrong things. And sometimes you could be loyal to the wrong things and go down with the ship, and it was pointless when you know, like deep down, like, man, this isn't right. But you feel like, I'm loyal, this is the way I learned it. And at the end of the day, talking to those people made me feel like they didn't have enough information to say, I shouldn't feel that way anymore.
Well, and that's the thing about Christianity. I remember growing up and we used to go to certain churches and women couldn't wear a sleeveless dress and women couldn't wear pants. Not at our church, I don't recall. But it brought me to, my mom and I had a conversation, and I think even our pastor spoke on it when I was really young, and he was talking about oral tradition. Not everything that Christians do, think, and say are really rooted in what the word actually says.
What do you mean?
Like not wearing sleeves, or not women not having like wearing pants. They always have to wear a dress or a skirt or what. That's not in the Bible. But we had to go to church and they would tell us this is how we do it.
What do you think the reason why behind that?
I mean, obviously, I think it's control and the idea of women, a piece of a woman's skin, they swear up and down it will like ruin men and their ability to control themselves. But what I'm saying is there are things that we believe, we think, we say, we do because we were raised this way in this church, and not all of it was taught to us from the Bible itself. There are a lot of people adding things in order to create more order. And I think that there are certain, it's interesting, in the Bible is interesting because you can make it be almost anything you want it to be. So you could look in there and it'll say, thou shalt not kill. But it also says that God allows us to have our own will. And so the idea of Christians voting based on their faith and not recognize that will is something that God gifted to everybody. So you imparting your beliefs in order to restrict someone else's will, that can be seen as wrong. So A lot of times I have to sit here and I have to think to myself when we're making decisions based on faith, are we doing it based on what was intended or what was added in as we were growing up, and it just continued to get dropped into you over and over again, and you believe that that's how it should be. And I really do believe that, your relationship with God is personal anyway. And so in your interpretation, you do ask leaders to help you interpret things as needed. But I really believe that it's personal. And I believe that nobody knows exactly how God intended for things to go. And so it's up to you and your relationship to be able to determine, what is this? What is what you're saying to me? What does it mean? What is it you want me to get from and that's just me.
No, I mean, I understand. I feel like we're all followers, and to protect the majority that don't think, they put them in this category, and it's like, this is the right way.
Yeah.
But like you said, the relationship that you have, like if you're in any type of group of people and you have not had that personal relationship with God, you can think you've had it. But you don't have to have any type of religion, anything to have a relationship with God. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah. I think that, yes, people feel like, and for some people, they do need guidelines. They do
because they don't know how to explore and get to that relationship.
I agree. And I think that sometimes we're so used to relating to this higher power through instructions, and having a guide, that it's really difficult for us to take the training wheels off and trust that we're getting what we need from this power, and we are living the way that God intends or wants, or even like, you're giving me free will to do what I will or what I want. I mean, what does that even look like? Because it sounds like I'm actually operating off of other people's will or their interpretation of it. And it's no offense to anyone in how you relate to God, whether it is with instructions, with guidance, or taking the training wheels off. I'm just saying that, to circle back around to the blue state, I was really worried that even though I feel safer with some of the decisions that may be made, I really feel like the other side was more extreme as far as trying to take money out of, like that one canvassing job you heard about. It was for scholarships. And you were like, why wouldn't you want scholarships? And then when you read it, you realize it was, no, we're going to take money and we're going to, give it to people in order to go to private school to pay for. Well, it didn't say private school. It said to pay for books and tuition and things of that nature. Public schools don't need that. So it means, where is that money going?
So I have a different view of that now.
Okay, go ahead.
So I kind of believe in it. And I'm going to tell you why. I don't know their intent, but I know that if I was rich and I was able to do that, do you think that I would do good? Like, I would benefit from the tax reductions because I am.
Yeah, I understand from the donator's point of view, but I'm saying from the trickle down effect it has on kids and education, and the way teachers are already not funded well. And, if you're going to take more money out of the public school system in order to feed into the private schools that have limited access, like, we always have a conversation about giving everyone the basic tools to live. Stop giving them this fluff education that doesn't have any real true value. Like, you're only giving me 30% of what I need in order to live and be a successful person. And I'm very, very protective of the idea of education, because not everybody is going to have access. And even though it's tax-wise, it's very helpful to some people. What's funny to me is people with the money, enough money to lose, are steady trying to hoard money. But people with no money and limited access they are subject to whatever these people decide to do sometimes. And so in order for them to get that like, in order for people to get these tax deductions, look at the ripple effect. And you don't even need it. Like, you have enough money to have
that's
wait, hold on. You have enough money to be comfortable, to live, but it's the need to, I want to save all of my, I want even more money. And whatever I'm getting, I need, but you have all these other people who are scraping and scrounging and trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. And it's just, I just can't care about how it could benefit somebody who wants a tax break. But I understand what you mean. I could understand why people want to vote for that. But I could also understand how if you spin it as a scholarship, you trick the people who don't read or can't read or interpret. And we all think we're getting something that's better for us, and it's not. And so when I look at proposals and things that pass, I'm thinking to myself, what is it, like, who is this benefiting? Is it benefiting? I'm always going to look to benefit the people with the least access, because I feel like there should be a basic level of respect and resources that people get. And I feel like in this society we have in the U.S., it's not important. But I think it is. And so when I'm looking
what's not important?
Everyone having adequate resources. Because I feel like when you don't have adequate resources, you're stressed, your kids don't get the best of you, you don't get the best of you. And the impact that the life you provide to your kid the best way you know how impacts that kid, and so on and so on and so on. And so when I'm looking at proposals, I'm trying to figure out, is this reducing disparities? Or is this, just, is it going to just help out a group where they don't necessarily need a leg up in order to live comfortably? And that's really where I look at. And so circling back around, when I look at these proposals and the things that our blue representatives were pushing for, it better reflects to me increased access to those who are usually disenfranchised. And just to add on, and then I'm done. I know I talk so much.
I appreciate it, because I feel like these type of conversations, like, nobody really thinks about.
Yeah, me and Dallas were having a conversation recently about voting. And Dallas said, if you say that there is an age group that's too young to vote, can you say that there's an age group that's too old to vote? Because their votes are impacting the direction of society that has moved beyond where these people are.
Yeah.
These people, they made different money than we did. Their houses cost different than we did. Their, cost of living was different. And they are still weighing in with this mind frame. They're still weighing in on things, and that's not the world we're living in anymore. And their decisions are adding numbers. It may not be massive numbers, but it's adding to votes. It's adding to the direction of society, and it's not even a society that they're not inheriting it. They're supposed to be handing it over. And it's funny because I was telling you that one saying where it said, we're not inheriting this world from our parents, we're borrowing it from our children. And so he was like, I think that there should be a cap on how old you are as a representative in Congress. I think that we should talk about how old you should be in weighing in on certain things. Like, older people weighing in on the abortion thing could really tip something in one direction versus another. You could look and see at votes and realize that there's a larger proportion of people coming into this society and moving through in the next, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decades who do believe in it. But you have those who are older who may be sprinkling those same ideas into the votes, and it impacts the direction of a world that they don't need to shape anymore. They've done their shaping. You know what I'm saying? And so one of the proposals was talking about limiting representatives to 12 years term no matter what. It doesn't matter if you did it consecutively or if it was broken up, whatever the case may be. And he was like, we were talking about in Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, I think he's been in for like 30 years or something. But his ideas, his thought process, all that stuff has changed. He's become tainted, not only by the era in which he grew up, but also having profited so much from being in Congress. You start to change your mind. Like, what was your platform in the beginning? How did you get there? And has Kentucky changed or improved at all with you being there?
Yeah. And, when you said that to me, like, I remember him. I grew up in Louisville, so the name is there. But to think that you could be in a position for that long and you can look like people in the state and say, we have not grown at all. Like, you can't be happy with your job. And I feel like the accountability of people in certain positions, there's no pride to improve. It's about selfish reasons of just self. Like, I'm in a good position, I'm going to do the best I can. But if you're not doing the best you can, if you're not doing better than you can, then somebody else needs to do it.
Yeah.
And putting a cap on anybody, I feel like it's necessary for anything. There's no job where you're supposed to just keep going because
right.
like the idea of old, when I think of old, it's not just an age, it's about where you stop changing. You start believing that some of the things that you learned was right and you won't even consider that you could be wrong. That means you're old. And to watch our country, which is really young, we still trying to figure it out too. Like, I know people think that because we're leading the world financially as far as being in debt, but still being so influential, you like, oh, like what kind of message are you sending to your the people in the country? Like, you can still live good in debt. Think about it. All people that go to college, not all, but majority of people that have gone to college are in debt and still living a fairly decent life. And that's not the way to go. But these are the practices of these old people. And when I say old people, I'm really talking about people who really feel like they figured it out. And it really bothers me that anybody can be in power that long and nothing change. Mm-hmm. And like, I haven't lived in Louisville since 1995. But I can say that Kentucky has not gone up, like, as far as one of those states that we need to follow. Mm-hmm. So you got somebody in position to make changes or help, and you're still like where you were 30 years ago. Like, as a person, or even as the people of that state, mm-hmm. if you're voting for this person, you have to, like, what are we voting for?
Yeah.
Like, and look, and I'll say this too. Even in Georgia, my namesake, rest in peace, John Lewis. John Lewis was in Georgia a long time doing different things. Like, people know who he is. They know, like, the different things that he's done throughout his career. When you think of him, you think that he's helped people mm-hmm. with the resources that he had. But when you think of, and maybe I'm being biased to Mitch McConnell, but I grew up there. And like I said, I'm familiar with them, but I don't see, like, Kentucky becoming that's like, when you think of Kentucky, you only think of like one or two cities at the most. Mm-hmm. Louisville, Lexington, mm-hmm. and you don't even think of the capital, Frankfurt. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like, what has he done? So, and Kentucky is not the only victim.
I agree. I agree. And I like that you said victim, because they are. Like, we as the constituents of the state, like, we put people in positions thinking that they're going to help to move the conditions of our state. And that's the other thing. We always look at the president like he's supposed to move the country in a direction, but nobody sits there and says, who's going to move the state in the direction that we want? We don't really assign the responsibility either. Yeah. We're just playing on teams. Well, I need my blue team to win. And do you actually look to see what the blue team is doing, what they intend, and what have you? It's there's a lot. But how do you feel about being in a super blue state?
I don't really care. I care because it makes you safe. It makes other people safe. But I did see the reverse side. I saw somebody with anxiety feeling like they were unsafe, the way that you would have if it was all red. And I don't feel happy about that either, because he's a person. He has his own views, but at the end of the day, I want everybody to feel safe. Yeah. And I feel like if we're voting in a party and our party loses, we have to believe that the people are smarter than your own personal opinion. And if they're wrong, we have to make a decision, go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we need something else. And I feel like you said, if you're on a team, but we're all on the same team, we're just trying to find the person to represent us as a team. If you lose, you have to believe that you didn't have enough information. They're supposed to do better. Because I'll say this: if in the next this upcoming term, if the blueness of the state doesn't change anything, we need to make some changes. And I really mean that. And I'm not saying this to cause any conflict, but I believe that the only way we can get better is if we get on the same page about things that we need to focus on improving. And Governor Whitmer has shown that she is willing to dedicate her time to improve.
Yeah.
Like you said, when we came back, we was in the past administration, but she's done enough to make for me to believe that, hey, she is in the best interest of the people of this state.
Yeah. Yeah. I it's funny because you said we're all on the same team, but we don't look at it that way.
We don't.
We don't look at it as, whoever gets in office, we're all going to be impacted by whatever they do. So, we're going to vote for our team, red or blue, but once that person has come in, you pray to God that person is not going to put us in a worse position. Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And when you said if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then we need to make changes. I agree. I don't necessarily agree that it means we have to go red, because when I think about red or blue, I don't think about the person. I think about the ideals behind the decisions that they make. But I think that we shouldn't just decide that everybody should get consecutive terms. Like, I feel like with presidents, the general idea of it was that everybody was like two term. You know what I'm saying? It's like, let people do all they can do in that position until it's done. I don't think so. I think if Governor Whitmer had one term and she wasn't effective, I don't think she should be the front runner for the next election for the Democratic Party of Michigan. I think that they should look at everyone and be like, okay, this term was not successful. Who else can we put in a position to make it better? But oftentimes, and I'm not saying that because I really appreciated Governor Whitmer and her decision making, especially during the pandemic. But
Big Gretch.
Yeah, but also I think that we should be okay within our parties to change up our idea. Okay, we thought this was the person. It's not. So who can we switch up to? I feel like that was what the Trump administration was like. Or the voting, I felt like the Republicans, they didn't mean to put him, I don't think they meant to put him in the position to become president. But when he was, it was like, let's fly with it. But when they came back and it was all kinds of cluster Fs going on in that administration, I think that rather than saying, okay, he's going to be our front runner to go again as president, they should have been taking stock of who they have and saying, this is our better option to back this year or this term. And I don't know the rules of how they decide who their person will be. But I think that we should be comfortable in switching people out. Like we were talking before, when you work a job, generally you have like 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, then either you need to be on a PIP or you're out of the job.
Absolutely.
And so there was no performance improvement plan for the last administration. And there was no performance improvement plan for the last administration. And then when it came time, they weren't willing to switch the seat, even though all of them weren't fully behind what was going on anyway. I think that we need to have less loyalty to people and more loyalty. And when I say people, I'm saying I'm going to back this one person until the end of time. I think we should have more loyalty to the progression of where we live and whoever can help us get there or whoever we can trust to do it, and not just say, I'm just going to keep rolling with this group or with this, this party or this representative or whatever the case may be. It's okay to change.
It is okay to change. And that's what I said. Like, if you're an effective communicator, you can convince a side to say, hey, let's try this. We've done that. That doesn't work. Look, the only way we can move as a state is if we're on the same page. We do have some conflicting views. Over the course of time, I think we'll iron that out. But right now, we need to make a collective decision on who can represent us to take us to a level that we can improve than we were the previous year. And if we don't have people to communicate like that, we're always going to just stay on the same team. We're going to have the people who's engaged in politics to be the voice of that party and cause the conflict like, oh, I don't like that. But at the end of the day, like I said, we're the state of Michigan. And as the state of Michigan, the people should say, hey, this is my party, but we're not doing what I thought we should be doing. We need to be open-minded to other things. And if we're not, like, it's almost like the state of Michigan has got no, just like Kentucky. But it changed with, it's changing.
Yeah.
So even if it does go back to being red, to me, I don't feel like, I think that's the people talking, saying like, okay, we gave them their shot. Let's see what this can do. So to me, I feel like Michigan got younger in the past, like, because they're open to do things to protect the people and to move forward. But I guess we'll come back to this, at the next election to see if we saw enough improvement. And I don't know what enough looks like, but I know that if you can change a state to blue when it's been red or vice versa, they didn't like what they were seeing.
Yeah.
And more people said, you know what are we voting for?
Yeah. So
I'm all for whatever party that's in the best interest of the people. And,
I agree.
And when I say that, I'm referring to people, not colors. Although Democrat has been known to favor African Americans, I feel like
African Americans favored being a Democrat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, well, yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Because we felt like they were listening to us more, and I don't even know if that's the case. I'm just going off of the way that I grew up.
Yeah.
When I grew up, you was like, you're a Democrat.
Yeah.
If
your
you
parents.
you're a Democrat.
That's the truth.
Yeah. And, as we got older, I know that I started to become more of a Democrat because I started to hear the views of Republicans. And I'm like, why does it sound like it's countering us? Like, it sounds like they stand on one side and it's against us.
Yeah.
And that's not what it should look like, So in the older I got, I became more liberal. But I realized that people can't literally be liberal because they're not thinking for themselves. They're thinking for a group of people. Like Republicans, they have these views. And I felt like if somebody really sat down with them and discussed those views, they were like, I guess that is a little old. I just felt like that was the way we were supposed to do it.
I mean, don't you feel like they're young Republicans though? So what are they thinking?
They still got the same parents, or they still got the same group of people. They don't talk to people like us.
But I think that it's interesting when you go to college though, you get mixed in with so many different people. It seems like it will rub off.
Well, going to college, you attract the people that so if you only like this, it's easier to find that group of people and to disconnect yourself away from people who don't have those views.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Christianity or any type of religion. You're supposed to, I remember my cousin is Jehovah's Witness, and he was just like, you're not supposed to surround yourself around people with different beliefs. Well, that's how you get old, because you think that your belief system is correct and that everybody else is wrong. So that means your views are going to be completely limited and it can't grow. So I think we just need to change the way that we attract new company, because look at us. I mean, we're secluded. Our information is literally by other people's opinions that come on social
Yeah.
media, because
Yeah.
we don't have those conversations with different groups of people to figure out how they feel. So we're
Yeah.
only going with a general assessment that, okay, they feel like this. And
Yeah, you're right.
yeah.
Yeah, it helps to see everybody's side. Um, I'm with you. I don't know. I think we should just start putting people on pips. I think that if
What
we
is a PIP for those that don't know?
a performance improvement plan, yeah, it's like you ain't doing what you're supposed to do, so let me give you the guidelines of what you need to do over the next 30, 60, 90 days.
Maybe
and
you
then,
forgot why you got this position.
Yeah.
And this is a reminder, like, are you still on board? If not, we need to find a replacement. And I know, and I'll say this, I can see how that could be offensive. But if people looked at it like, dang, I must be doing something wrong, I need to improve, because you're responsible for people.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it, somebody else needs to do it.
Well, and that's the other thing. I don't think that they're being held accountable like that. So it's easy to just keep going for the same term. Well, ain't nobody complaining. Let me just keep running. But I think that if we were more watchdogs over the people that we put in these positions, there would be a lot of turnover with different representatives, or the representative in the seat is going to rise to the occasion and really make stuff move. And I think it's not just them. It'll be all of their representatives will have to make things move. I'm wondering if that would make laws pass and differently, like what would be lobbied for, what would all those things. I'm wondering if there became a new like energy surged in there, like we need to be able to keep our job. Because I feel like right now it's like once you get voted in, you kind of get in there and you're moving papers around, and then it's time for the term to come up again, and then you become loud again, and oh, we need to fight for this and we need to fight for that. One of the things I thought was interesting is when you look on, I don't know if it's called Ballotpedia or something, there's a website you can go on, even the Senate, I think a government site, and you can click on the people and see what they voted yes and no on all throughout their term. Like, what were they voting yes for? What were they what did they allow to pass and not pass? And then it gives you an idea of, okay, when they got in there, did they really represent what we thought that they were going to represent? And I'm not an expert on how politics works, but I'm just saying, when we're thinking about democracy, they make it seem so simple. And they say, all you got to do is vote me into this seat, and then I'll make sure that X, Y, and Z happens. Now, this is what you're telling the majority of people in this world, in our country. And so when you say, all you got to do is put me in the seat and I'm going to fight for you for this, let's just make sure you're fighting for us. And if you're not, then I want somebody that's a better fighter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I want to circle back and say, I'm not saying that people who are older, their votes are not valuable. I'm just saying that we're moving into where our world is constantly evolving. Mm-hmm. And if their thought process isn't evolving in order for the world to move forward and not stay stagnant, then their vote kind of hurts us rather than helps us to really go in a direction. So anyway, that's what I'm going to say about that. So, yeah, blue state.
Yeah, Michigan is feeling blue, and it's getting cold.
It is, but it's beautiful.
It is. Anybody you want to give a shout out before we get out of here?
I want to give a shout out to Gretchen, because Gretchen is moving forward.
Governor Gretchen, yeah, Whitmer,
is moving forward with, last I heard, moving forward with opening a factory in Michigan for chips to run cars. We rely on
other countries.
Other countries, yes, thank you. We rely on other countries, and her thinking of putting money toward that in order to not only create jobs, but also help with moving these cars and, getting things going in Michigan. I'm appreciative of it. So, what's up, Gretchen?
I'm gonna piggyback off that, and I've heard people complain like it didn't work. Like she like, you want it to work, don't you? Like, people are like upset because it hasn't gone through or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's supposed to help the economy of Michigan, and people mad because it didn't work yet. It hasn't like gone into play, and it bothers me that if people say they're going to do something and there was a hiccup, people just automatically just like, oh, she said she was going to do this, but she didn't do this. Oh, she just it's a bunch of lies. Like at the end of the day, I do believe that people want to make the state better, but I feel like people don't know how to actually effectively they don't know how to present it in a way for everybody to be like, hey, it's going to take some time. Mm-hmm. And it always, like, if you don't know that it's going to take some time, you're going to automatically be on the other side and be like, they're lying, they're not doing this.
Well, people always want grace, but it's very difficult for them to give grace.
Instant gratification is what's the problem. People don't know when you invest in anything, it's going to take time for it to develop. But if you want instant gratification, you're just going to be upset.
And, I don't want to just say that in regards to because she's a Democrat. I would say that I really, if we were a red state and somebody said, this is the thing that I'm going to do and it's going to improve the economy of Michigan, I'm going to want it to work too, but I understand that it takes time.
Absolutely.
So I guess with anybody, really, I just want people to be able to have jobs and live. So anything somebody tells me they're going to do that's supposed to boost up jobs and quality of life for people, I'm for it. And I know that it's not all going to move quickly, but.
For sure. Shout out to Governor Gretchen Whitmer and the supporting cast of Michigan who's going to allow the state to elevate.
The supporting cast, yeah.
Y'all make today better than yesterday. Don't worry about anything you can't control. GATA, get after that action, or that action will get after you. Boom. Be great on purpose.